What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome to the very first episode of a brand new video series called Rivals and Adversaries, a new buddy build series that I'm doing with my good buddy Joe over at Mad Genius Productions. Now, what is Rivals and Adversaries? What are we doing here? Well, it's pretty simple. Joe came up with an idea for a buddy build series that's very similar to what we usually have done in the past, which is build the same kit, right? And kind of compare notes and just kind of have fun and build it the way we want. You know, you guys get to see what two different modelers can do with the exact same kit. This time around though, we're going to try something a little bit different in that we are actually going to be building different kits, but that are related by the fact that they were at one time rivals or adversaries. So for example, if I were to say a Spitfire Mark 1A, Joe could easily build a Messerschmitt 109 E4 or E7. They were in direct combat during the Battle of Britain, so they would be rivals. Or one could say an A6M20, and the direct rival to that could be an F4F Wildcat. One could say an early P40, like a P40C. So again, this idea that Joe had actually opens us up to build a lot of different variations on kits and have some fun with it. So of course the question is, what are we going to be building? And if you saw the thumbnail, you already know, but in case you didn't, because we just came off of another buddy build where we built something Cold War, we're going to stick with that Cold War theme, and we're going to go ahead and build one of the most quintessential rivals and adversaries of the Cold War. We're talking the F-86 Sabre, in this case the F model, versus the MiG-15. These were in direct combat during the Korean War, and as you can see here, we've got two kits, both look awesome, and I'm really excited to go ahead and dive in. Now I'm going to start on the F-86 Sabre, and Joe's going to go ahead and build the MiG-15. We are kind of thinking about the idea that we might swap them after we go ahead and finish our respective kits. I might build the MiG-15 and he might build the Academy Sabre. That way we can have direct comparisons for two different kits as opposed to just one kit built at the same time. I don't know how this is going to work, guys, but we're excited to go ahead and dive in. So let's take a look at the F-86 and show you what's in the box. So this is a very typical Academy boxing. It looks great. There's awesome artwork on the front of it. We've got numerous poly bags with a couple of sprues per poly bag, and we've got a nice set of decals, our instructions, and a decal placement sheet. Decals look pretty good, but this is a natural metal aircraft, so I don't know if these are going to work as well as I would like them to. I've had some issues with Academy decals in the past, so I'm a little hesitant, but they look pretty decent in the box. We're also given a full sheet for markings. As you can see, all the different stencils and all the different markings here for the stars and bars, the tail code, and that really cool dragon on the front nose there. That's awesome. So that's good. We're going to keep that there. And then of course the instructions are very typical Academy, and I think they look pretty good, very clear, very clean, very concise. Now we are given some interesting features. We are given a pilot, both standing and sitting. We have intake trunking here. We start off of course in the cockpit area, so that looks good. Everything is kind of built on top of that cockpit, which is on top of the air intake, and then everything kind of goes together. We're also given an engine, and we can actually separate the fuselage if we want to expose the engine. I'm probably not going to do that, but you know, we'll see as we kind of get into the build. We are given guns. We are given 6 50 cal machine guns, and we have the openings for both of the gun bays. Again, I don't know if I want to go ahead and have those open or have those closed. I like the look of the Sabre all in a very closed, neat position, but then again, I do like things hanging out like the air brakes. Of course, we've got the landing gears and all that. We've got a couple of different styles of ordnance. I've liked Academy kits in the past, and this looks to be pretty well detailed, and we have some options which are always nice. In terms of the plastic here for the aircraft itself, since this is a natural metal aircraft, we're going to have to get this as smooth and as clean as possible before we apply primer and then of course the paint. So I want to make sure the plastic doesn't feel grainy, doesn't feel rough, feels pretty good. Yeah, this is actually pretty well detailed, so I'm happy to say that I think if we decide to pose that engine open and exposed, we'll have a lot of nice detail that we can check out. I don't know if it's correct, mind you, but we do have some detail that would be really helpful if we went ahead and exposed some of these parts and pieces. Now, of course, we have our canopy. We have a bubble canopy, so we have a front windscreen, and then, of course, the rear sliding portion of the canopy. There looks to be a bit of a seam line right in the middle of the clear part. I don't know if that's actually supposed to be there. Again, I got to check my references to figure out what exactly we've got here, what is correct, maybe potentially incorrect. Now, like I mentioned, the fuselage does look very clean. We've got a actual marking right here. If we want to go ahead and cut that tail cone off the front of the aircraft, we can do that. We have very smooth plastic. We have all recessed panel lines. We have a little bit of some sink marks right here along that demarcation line between the rear tail and the front portion of the aircraft. But otherwise, the plastic does look very, very crisp and actually very nice. Like I mentioned, we have both the right and the left gun bays that can be exposed open. We've got 650 cals that we can go ahead and put in there. We might be able to doctor it up a little bit, maybe add some wires if we so choose to have those open. I don't know if I want to go ahead and pose that open or closed. The rear air brakes, I'd actually would like to have those open if I can, but we'll go ahead and deal with that when we get closer to it. You can see on the other side of this right here, this is where you can cut the fuselage to go ahead and expose that. Otherwise, the engine's tucked away inside, you're never going to see it. Now for the cockpit itself, it actually looks pretty good. We've got a lot of detail in here molded into the sidewalls. I don't know how accurate it is, but we actually do have some very nice detail. The inside of the wheelbase as well, we've got some piping already molded in there. We've got some gears and hatches and whatnot, so that's awesome. We'll have to again check our references. Like I mentioned, we are given some pilots. We have a standing pilot here. Detail looks very nice. I can't complain. We also have a seated pilot if we want to go ahead and use that guy. Again, very nice details, really nicely molded, so I'm happy about that. Overall, it's nice to have some extras. I don't know if I'm going to use them, but it's nice to have some extras for sure. Now for the decals, again, these are Academy decals. Sometimes Academy decals don't really like to come off the backing very easily. Sometimes they're too thick. Sometimes they silver no matter how much clear coat you put on them. We'll have to go ahead and see how these work. I am actually interested though in potentially maybe airbrushing some of the markings. Maybe not the USAF or maybe not the stars and bars or the buzz numbers. If I could go ahead and work out a way to use my vinyl cutter, I might be able to cut some masks. I don't know if I want to do that, so I'm not going to agree to it just yet till I get to this point, but otherwise the yellow markings, might be able to paint those, as well as the black outlines, might be useful there to go ahead and paint instead of use the decals. Now in terms of references guys, I don't have a lot of physical references for the Sabre, or for that matter for the MiG. What I do have though is a very cool book, I'd highly recommend it here, called Mig Alley. It's a Squadron Signal Publications. As you can see, it's seen some better days. Spine is ripped up, cover is all stained. I used to love to read these books and eat cereal, so I've dropped a lot of cereal on this book. As you can see again, pages are coming out. I just went ahead and taped these, so they're at least staying in some form of order, but really awesome pictures and a lot of cool information regarding the early air war efforts there in Korea. So we got F-80s, F-84s, as well as F-51s. And of course, we've got a couple of detailed photos. We've got some maps. We've got, of course, color profiles. Again, a lot of really cool pictures, era-specific pictures, and then of course a lot of color schemes that should help us along, at least get us in the right direction. Also, kind of as a cool side note, they have real-life stories of pilots who flew Sabres and duked it out with the MiGs over Mig Alley. So that's also very cool to kind of read some of these pilots' experiences. Here we can see another color profile, and as you can see here, this is the version that I'd like to build. This is the Huff. And if you notice something kind of interesting, we actually have a natural metal finished aircraft, but if you notice the drop tanks, for some reason look like an olive drab color. I'm not really sure what that's all about, but that could be interesting to go ahead and represent, or maybe it's a different color altogether. Who knows? But what we do have here is a really awesome book with a little bit of some information on the MiGs, mostly information though regarding F-86 Sabres, fighter bombers, F-80s, F-84s, and of course, it's something I love to see, actual real life pictures of what I'm building. In this case, the Huff right here. That's something I'm going to have to study. So this is what we've got in terms of our physical book. It's not a lot, and it doesn't really dive into just the Sabre, but it's got some really cool information. So if you guys are interested in the Korean War and in Mig Alley, go ahead and check out this book. I'm pretty sure you can find it somewhere online for hopefully relatively cheap, or if nothing else, they might be available on ebook. Speaking of ebooks, I do have a couple of F-86 Sabre ebooks that I might be able to kind of dig in and utilize for this build. Problem with ebooks is I don't really have a physical book I can open up and I can look at. Positives though, I can zoom into pictures, so I need to go ahead and find a tablet or maybe even use my phone, I don't know, and do some research and figure out what I need to do to make this kit look a little bit more accurate, a little nicer. But that is it guys, that is the model kit we're going to be building here on Rivals and Adversaries. We've got the Sabre first up, Joe's got the MiG, so that's going to be interesting to see how we go ahead and we each build our kits, and then at the end of this, if we're feeling good, we feel lucky, we might switch them and I'll build my MiG-15 and he can build his Sabre. So that's the idea here guys. I am very excited to go ahead and jump in on this. It is natural metal though, so I'm going to have to really make sure that my finish is as clear and as clean as possible. We'll more likely be using all-clad with a nice gloss black primer. Lots of work to do though on that finish, because man, if you have one inconsistency or one issue on natural metal, it shows up like a sore thumb. But that's actually future Ben's problem. Right now, we're just going to go ahead, next episode, we'll come on back and we're going to dive in on the cockpit, start doing some painting. I do have a photo etch set for this by Edward, so we're going to go ahead and start installing that. And we're just going to have some fun. So until our next episode, you guys know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. Make sure to go check out Joe's channel, check out what he's got going on with his MiG. He might have some extra parts and pieces. I don't really know what he's got yet, but check out his video series and we will see you back here on the next episode, guys. Take care and we'll see you soon.